I'm just like you. I like art.
My favorite song is Michael Jackson.
I make jewelry. I made this bracelet.
I like to read, eat, and sleep.
Mi piace la scuola, un pochino alla scuola.
I like to sing Smooth Criminal with Billie Jean.
I like ice cream. I like tacos.
Hi, my name is Molly Korte, founder of Project Just Like You. I began this journey of Project Just Like You after my son Jacob was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder in the summer of 2016. I then decided to create a movement to showcase how people are all more alike than different. The whole idea is to build a world of inclusion, to make this world a stronger place, because together, when we are united, we are stronger as a human race, we are stronger as a people, and when we break down the differences and we focus on what we have in common, then we are creating a world where we can build friendships and we can relate to one another based on who we are as a person. And I feel like the person is the most important aspect of who we are, because each one of us have a purpose and each one of us needs to be seen as a dignified human being. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please click the share button so your friends can learn about us. If you'd like to sponsor a story, you can click on the donate button on Facebook. Every little bit helps. You help pay for these shows. Today is Movement Monday. It's a new initiative, Project Just Like You. A Project Just Like You also is a nonprofit, so please know that all your money is tax deductible. Our goal here is to introduce you to people who are part of the special needs world, people who support and advocate for inclusion. And anyone else who you think we might find interesting as champions of people with special needs, please let us know so we can continue on with these shows and highlight those people who are really making a difference in our world. Join us every Monday by watching Movement Mondays. Movement Mondays are produced by Fiat Media. So we want to give them a huge shout out and a thank you. They make this possible. You can check them out on Facebook by looking up Fiat Ministry here on Facebook, or on their webpage, fiatministrynetwork.tv. I hope you'll take a minute to click the share button and tell your friends what you are watching. Tonight, one lucky person who contributes a relevant question or comment during our live interview will win a National Catholic Board of Full Inclusion t-shirt. Thank you, Beth, for that. We'll pick a random winner later on this evening and notify you via Facebook Messenger. So make sure to ask comments and to ask questions. Right now, we want to welcome Kelly, Rob, Brian, and Kent to our show. Thank you for making this part of your evening tonight and being with us. And I know we're in big competition because Trump is announcing his new Supreme Court pick at 9 p.m., the same time we have this here. So thank you for being part of our show tonight. We're going to start in just a moment, but before we do, can you let us know where you're from? And we'll make sure to give you a shout out. We have a number of followers from here in this country, as well as other countries as well. So we're going to monitor your comments during the interview. So please feel free to share and post your questions as often as you like, and we'll get to as many of you as possible. Tonight, we are excited to have Beth Foraker with us. Beth is a mom, a teacher, and advocate. As a teacher, she fully included a student with Down syndrome in her 5th grade classroom, way before Google and apps. So when her 3rd child, Patrick, was born with Down syndrome, she knew that inclusion was not only possible, but that it was transformative for all involved. We agree, Beth. She asked her local parish, St. James Catholic School in Davis, California, to include Patrick since his 2 older siblings went there. They said yes. He was included from kindergarten through 8th grade and was able to make all of his sacraments, even be on student council. As he was graduating, she began a nonprofit to help families and Catholic schools feel ready to say yes. Their website offers educational research, mentors, and stories of inclusion. Today, she works with schools and dioceses all over the nation, helping them to become inclusive. But now they're working to develop what she calls continuums of inclusion. There are communities that offer inclusion preschool through college. Currently, there are 4 cities like that, and there are 0 Catholic universities offering inclusive opportunities. We need to change that, Beth.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
They're working to expand that and amplify the efforts of communities that are doing hard work of developing lifelong inclusion. Beth, welcome to Movement Monday. How are you doing this evening?
I'm super great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we're excited to have you. This is such a pleasure to have you on our show tonight. So Beth, I'm going to dive into this. I was looking at your webpage, and it says the mission of the National Catholic Board of Full Inclusion is to inspire schools to begin the process of becoming inclusive, to educate teachers, parents, principals, and priests on what it takes to become an inclusive school and provide the educational research and real-life experiences that support it. That sounds like a wonderful mission statement. Can you tell us more about that, Beth? Go ahead.
Sure. Well, we have this amazing Pope. His name is Pope Francis, for people who aren't Catholic. And Pope Francis has been a huge advocate for standing in the margins with people. And that means going out, not just sitting there, idly by with your comfort zone, but actually going out and doing the hard work of welcoming people on the margins. And many people with disabilities are not involved in their Catholic parish, not involved in their parish school. And so our effort is to help people see that it is possible. It's not nearly as hard as you think. And that a lot of parishes, believe it or not, and schools will say, we just don't have those people. No one is asking. No one really wants to come. And that's because they don't feel welcome. And so we are all about sharing what's possible. So we have a lot of photos, we have videos, we have stories, families sharing, teachers sharing, because we want people to know, yes, those people are in your parish. Yes, those families are standing on the sidelines and they want to ask, but they're very afraid because if they ask and you say no, then they have to face the fact that their faith community denied them something that they know is inherently part of their faith, which is welcome for everyone. So many people are just afraid to ask because they don't want to face the no. And so we stand with those families to feel the courage to say yes. And we stand with the schools to feel the courage to say yes. We offer mentorship of teachers and paraeducators and experts in disabilities for priests and administrators so that they can feel comfortable saying yes. And we do that all for free. We charge no money.
That's excellent. So have you encountered families who have had the courage to ask, and then they were denied or rejected?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's very common. And what I always say to those people is don't feel discouraged because it is a process. It's planting. Our logo is the dandelion. And
yes, I saw that.
And we are just always planting seeds. So we say to you, you might get a no, but that no is usually fear-based. It's just because they don't know what to do. And so the no is easy. And then when you just keep offering, hey, here's a school who's willing to share their experience. Hey, here's a teacher, here's a principal, here's a priest, here's a bishop, here's a whole diocese. Once you start kind of helping them realize it's not as difficult as they think, they might revisit it. We've had families who've gotten many no's in a row, and then one school says, well, we'll try it, we'll see, and and it's been successful. I often tell people to go take a field trip before they say no. Go take a field trip and see inclusion in your Catholic school that's nearby, so that you can see what it looks like, because it doesn't look that different. Really.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Sure.
We know, but people who haven't done it before think it's going to look so crazy different, and it doesn't.
So what are some of those resources that you use? So when you work with the families who have gone to their schools and asked for their child to be included in their school system, they've gotten a no's, what are those resources that you provide them with?
Sometimes I pair them up with another parent who's gotten a no but has kept at it.
Okay.
Sometimes I just share stories of the no's that have evolved into yeses. Sometimes we just literally pray together. It just depends on where the person is at. It's very fragile and vulnerable time for those people. And so sometimes they don't want to reach out to anybody. They just want to stay in their hard space. And so sometimes I just have an email conversation back and forth for weeks or months until they feel more comfortable facing it again and trying again. It's very painful to get a no. And none of us can diminish that. But what we can say is you're not alone in that no. And many of these people have had a prenatal diagnosis of a child, particularly with Down syndrome. And so they've already kind of been through this hard no of the world saying, like, you don't want your baby, do you? So I always, if they are those families, I'm always say, remember in that beginning how hard that was to say yes to your baby, and how you were kind of going against your whole this whole culture.
Right.
It's the same thing, but you know how you gradually grow to understand the importance and the depth and the beauty of this journey, and it's okay.
It's okay. Absolutely. And I love that you guys do that. So it sounds essentially like you guys are advocates, and they pull you in to help them in that journey.
Yeah. And then we'll talk to the principals, or we'll talk to the teachers if they're worried. Sometimes I go to the schools. I've done, over video conferencing for staff development. We can do all sorts of ways to support you. And the internet now has so many research. So on our website, we have gobs of ways to support too.
That's fantastic. I love that. We're going to pause real quick, and I want to welcome Tara, Jane, and Cynthia. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Again, we have Beth with us, and she is the director and founder of the National Catholic Board of Full Inclusion. And we hope that you will ask some questions and participate in our discussion tonight. So thank you for choosing to be with us tonight, and we hope that it helps you in your journey. And we're glad that you chose to spend your time with us this evening. Beth, this is pretty amazing what you guys are doing. I love this. Do you have any stories that come to mind of heartwarming stories that you have seen in your journey here with these families? We'd love to hear some of them.
Okay, there's so many, and it's really beautiful. Okay, one of my favorites is there was a family who had a little guy with Down syndrome who had a fourth grader daughter, and then he was included And then he was told no. So he was included in the preschool. And then when it was time for kinder, the school said no. And it was a deep time of sadness.
Sure.
And the mom chose to homeschool him for that year and revisit it. So she offered the chance for the school board and the priest and the principal they rented a party bus to drive from St. Louis down to Kansas City, Missouri to see inclusion in action. And they met with an amazing advocacy group that's called FIRE. It's the oldest Catholic advocacy group for inclusion in Catholic schools. Okay. They met with those people. So they've been doing this for 20 years.
Wow.
So they met with those people, and they have a whole network of schools now in the Diocese of Kansas City, Missouri. So I'm getting chills even now telling you the story. So when that principal and the priest and the school board saw what was possible they visited a high school, they visited several elementary schools. They got back on the bus. I think they had a 5-hour ride, and they started talking about what they could do and how they could make it happen. And the family ended up creating a very similar advocacy group to FIRE. It's called One Classroom. It raises funds for inclusion in all the schools for the Archdiocese of St. Louis, Missouri. And their son is fully included. He made his first Holy Communion with his class last year. And again, what's happening is it's slowly transforming that whole school. So yes, that's one of my favorite stories, but there's so many. Actually, I'm going to share this other one because I love this story.
Please do.
Okay, this one is the opposite. This is kids who've been included, typical kids. And so these typical kids were included in the LA area, Santa Ana, California. And they had this guy with Down syndrome in their class, and they were 7th graders. And they went to the Catholic high school, which is named Mater Dei. It's a very famous high school in California, Catholic high school. So they went to Mater Dei as 7th graders, a group of 7th grade boys. And they said, see our friend Charlie? This is our friend Charlie. He's been in school with us, and we want him to go to Mater Dei. We're all going to Mater Dei, and we need Mater Dei to let Charlie come. And Mater Dei was so moved by those kids that they started investigating what it would look like. And the head of that program, Denise Sensig, started taking field trips. And she went down to Cathedral Catholic in San Diego, and she went to Bishop England, which is in South Carolina. And she went to these different schools, and she saw what was possible. And she came back to her principal, and she said, I want to build this. And this fall, they are welcoming Charlie and one other student with Down syndrome, because those typical kids advocated, that is the sweet spot. It's the back door. When these kids are included and they develop these relationships, they know the value and they are willing to advocate. And I'm so proud of Mater Dei for listening to these students, not blowing them off, not using, there's, the famous excuse, it's too expensive, we can't do this. They listened, and they knew there was a reason, and they said yes. So
that is beautiful.
There's many ways to do this and to get it done. And I think it is really powerful to watch what the students say. And on our website, we have a video of Patrick, my son, when he was graduating from 8th grade. There's a 7-minute video on there. And the kids are the most powerful. What they say, how they have been changed by this experience is really, I don't understand how you say no after you listen to the kids.
That's incredible. And how powerful that it was the kids themselves, the neurotypical kids, that were advocating for them.
Yeah.
That shows a power of love, of inclusion, and of unity. I started tearing up when you were telling that story, Beth.
It makes me tear up. And I will tell you that we're working here. I work for UC Davis. So in my day job, I work for UC Davis helping teachers become teachers. But then my night job, my fun job, is helping Catholic schools do this. So We're working to build a program at UC Davis, which is a big university here in California.
Yeah.
And the people driving it are the undergrads. The typical kids want this, and they are meeting with me. They are asking, and the chancellor is not going to be able to say no.
That's
when
right. Absolutely.
When he hears the typical undergrads asking for this, he too will listen.
That is so wonderful.
That's the way to do it. And so that's why preschool and kinder is so important. Yes. So that these kids can develop those friendships and relationships, so that when they're older and they see the value in their friendship with this child, they will ask for what we know is so powerful, which is true inclusion.
And I think you nailed it there, Beth. We are currently, my little guy is still in preschool, and I'm just going to share really fast about, where we are right now. And we had an IEP meeting with his IEP team, and we would not back down from the fact that we did not want our son Jacob to be put in a self-contained classroom. We want him to be with his neurotypical peers, because just as you said, that's where they learn best. And all the studies prove it. All the research proves it. I mean, everything that's ever been done on this says that inclusive classrooms work. Yes. And it benefits everyone, because you have all the students there, the people who come in with different abilities. They bring new ideas to the classroom. They bring new ways of looking things. And they also bring a load of compassion with them. And that's ultimately, I feel like, what our world needs most right now.
100%. I'm going to share with you my favorite fact about Down syndrome. So we also have in Davis this thing called the UC Davis Mind Institute, which is a big institute that does research on autism and people with intellectual disabilities. And this man, who's a researcher there, wanted to check out the hotspots in people with Down syndrome's brains and see if there was a match that correlated in any other subgroup, any other population. The only subgroup that matched people with Down syndrome's hotspots in their brain was, Molly, what do you think?
The compassion part, the feelings.
Yeah, what subgroup would it be? Like women? Would it be babies? Would it be Black people? Would it be Hispanic people? Would it be people from Asia? What subgroup? Is there any that had the same match? There is one subgroup, and it is Buddhist monks in high meditation.
Really? I would have never guessed it, but that's amazing.
which tells you the compassion piece you're talking about.
Yeah,
it's real. This isn't something we're just talking about. This is data verified. The level of compassion that these people are walking around with, they're at the bliss point with Buddhist monks in high meditation.
Holy cow!
That's who they match. So no wonder people respond.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. So no wonder people respond, right? I mean, they feel that energy. They feel that bliss point and that compassion.
What an incredible, I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that, Beth, because
isn't that crazy?
That's
wild.
My
favorite fact about
that is wild. Wow, those Buddhist monks are doing something right, aren't they?
But they're working really hard.
Yes.
Our people are just walking around with it. So I feel like we have to, and we're getting there. We have to really cherish and have reverence for what people are bringing to the classroom.
Of course.
And everybody is bringing something different, just what you mentioned.
Yeah.
And every child has something super important to offer. And
absolutely.
When we are inclusive and we support all learners, that is where the transformation happens, because that is where every person feels valued.
Yes.
Every person feels that they have something important to contribute. Yes. And everybody becomes a learning machine. It really is the definition of community, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why we want to build communities of inclusion, because it's the same thing. When we have like for instance, I just posted on our Facebook page, Clemson Life, which has a post-secondary program for kids with people with intellectual disabilities.
We've highlighted a Clemson Life before on Project Just Like You. We love Clemson.
So what has happened now is a hotel is being built right there in Clemson that will have 60% of the job openings be for people with disabilities.
Yes.
So what's going to happen then is you will again offer this inclusive adulthood and inclusive life right there in Clemson. And it will be a whole continuum.
Yeah.
And it will bleed into the rest of Clemson as a city in a way that will transform, just like the learning communities we're talking about in the regular classroom, that will happen at a city level.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by continuums of inclusion. So when you offer preschool through college as a city, then these things start bubbling up in adulthood. And then your whole city becomes that amazing, inclusive community.
And wouldn't that be so, you go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, there's only 4 cities like that in the nation.
Right.
And it doesn't mean we can't, lots of cities have pockets, right? So Clemson right now is not one of those because as far as I know, and people from Clemson can share with me, but I do not believe that their elementary school and preschool is inclusive yet, nor their high school. So they have this amazing college piece.
Yes.
And now this independent adulthood piece, right? But they're missing the other 2 pieces. So they are not yet a continuum of inclusion. So the 4 cities that are Fairfax, Virginia, Providence, Rhode Island, Nashville, Tennessee, and Charleston, South Carolina.
Excellent.
Those are the 4. We have a lot of cities that have pieces like Clemson.
Yeah.
But very few that have the whole
spectrum. That's interesting. It doesn't surprise me that Fairfax is in there. My husband is from Northern Virginia, and there is a huge push up in Northern Virginia for the inclusion movement. And it's wonderful. And I'm hoping that it'll, come down to Richmond where I am.
It won't. It can't help it. It will start bleeding. It will start.
Yes.
Will.
You're right. Absolutely. We're going to take another quick pause here, Beth.
Okay.
We want to welcome Renee, Martha, Laurie, Kim, and Susan. Thank you again for being part of our show. And we have a few questions for you, Beth.
Sure.
Laurie asks, do you feel like this is the beginning of a movement? The birth typical kids accepting these kids? I worry for my daughter's future, but stories like this make me feel so hopeful.
Oh, I think she should feel so hopeful. I work with undergrads, and I have 2 children I have 4 kids. 2 of them are in their 20s. I have Patrick, who's 19, and a daughter who's 12. And I will say, my son's 25, my oldest, 25 all the way down. They get it. The teachers that I work with, the beginning teachers, I've gotten to teach a seminar on inclusion at my university for 12 years. I've had my job for 12 years. And last year was the first year I brought Patrick with me. We co-presented and shared. And I will say that the undergrads who are now grad students in my program I don't need to convince them that inclusion is necessary or important. They want it. They just want the tools of how to do it. They get it. And in fact, when Patrick was presenting, they all came up and talked to him about what clubs he should join in college and all this stuff. It was incredible. So I feel like who we have to convince is people who are 40 and older. I really think people in their 30s and younger get it for the most part. And especially all of the kids who have been in inclusive classrooms, because we've had the IDEA for a long time, and we've had this push for inclusion for 20 solid years now in public schools. So actually 25. So all those kids have been included and they know what it's like. So I think she should feel very hopeful. I feel like it's definitely a movement, and we will get to the point where it's not even going to be a thing. Everyone will just get to be included. We will get there.
I believe that too, Beth. And we have a lot of work to do, especially in certain parts of the country.
Yes.
I know California as a whole is more progressive out there. You guys seem to catch on to those ideas and run with them.
Well, you know, I bet we have plenty of parts of California also that aren't inclusive. So it's
Sure.
not some panacea anywhere. And it takes people feeling just like you did in your school district. You doing the research, knowing the research, because now research is accessible to everyone.
Absolutely.
So you have a level playing field with the educators, and most educators don't know. If they've been in the classroom, a typical classroom, they don't know unless they have had personal experience. So you actually are the expert. And so when you come to your IEP meeting and you share the knowledge you know and the resources you have, that's what needs to happen, because you can plant the seed that your child will learn best in an inclusive setting, and that's what you demand. And when you do that, I will just say, I mean, the reason I included that student all those years ago was that student was the superintendent's child and a first grade teacher's child. So they knew to ask.
Yes. Yes.
But by asking, they transformed the school. So what you're doing is transforming the school for the people coming after you. And every person who's doing that, little bit by little bit, it adds up.
Yes,
and
it does.
And it makes a difference. And you start to gain traction.
Yeah.
So
excellent. Excellent. Well, we have a few more questions and comments for you, Beth.
Sure.
Susan says, I love the young kids. The adults ask why my daughter is there. The kids ask, why is she not here? And I think, yeah, absolutely, yep. Susan, go ahead if you have something to,
you know what's interesting with Patrick, no parent ever said anything to me about it. And I think the children convinced the parents, you know, watching the parents watching their child, you know, children always show us the way.
Yes.
They know the path, and we have to follow them. And so I think when parents hear a comment from another parent, recognize that, again, the person, unless they have personal experience, they're just coming from a place of ignorance. They don't know. They are not intending to be hurtful.
Sure.
And they don't recognize what your child is bringing to the classroom. I'm going to share one story.
Please do. Yeah. We have more comments and questions for you. So I just want to let you know.
I'll go really fast.
No, please take your time. You're fine.
When Patrick was in kinder, he was the first child with Down syndrome fully included in his Catholic school. And the kindergarten teacher did not want him there. She was afraid. And so we just kind of said, well, here was our back door. He had leukemia from age 3 to 6. So everybody had been praying for him. And when it looked like he was going to live, they couldn't really say no. So they had to let him in. So that was, I don't recommend that back door, but that's how we got it. But anyway, so she wasn't really thinking he had anything to offer and looked at him as a burden. But here's where grace comes in, and it's so beautiful. So in about October, she turned on a song, and the song was "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong, and Patrick knew all the signs of that song. Patrick was not very articulate in kinder, but he started signing like crazy. And this kindergartner next to him raised her hand, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Patrick knows sign language just like my cousin. My cousin has Williams syndrome. Oliver, he knows sign language just like Patrick right here." And so because she found this connection with her cousin, the teacher had to stop and be like, and this is where the grace part came. She said, "Patrick, come to the front of the class and show us the signs." And when she allowed him to come to the front, the shift happened where suddenly in her mind, and here's where the grace part was, I was there, I got to watch this.
Oh, that's beautiful.
When he started showing the signs, the shift happened with it where, oh my gosh, he has something to offer. He can teach us something. He's not always going to be this taker, this burden. That shift was very slight, but it changed everything. And this is the way inclusion happens. We can never know the moment that will shift it. But once we start seeing these children as thing that they have stuff to offer, gifts
Yes.
to share,
Yep.
expertise that only they can bring. Once we start seeing that, and then we start being able to see it in all of our students, it changes the classroom.
Beth, I think you absolutely nailed it there, that each person has gifts to share, and each person has a valuable place in that classroom. And once you're, like you said, once they recognize what those unique gifts are, a whole world opens up, and
Totally.
people respect them on that level, because they see that, they see the value, and they see that, not, and it's sad sometimes that you have to see the value, but they have this intrinsic value, they have this intrinsic purpose. And what a beautiful story about Patrick.
That was crazy.
I love that. Again, thank you for sharing that, because that's quite a beautiful story. And my son Jacob does sign language still. I mean, he's verbal, but you can't. You have to listen to really hard to what he's saying, and he does the sign language too. And I think it's a wonderful gift to have that.
And look at how he will influence his peers then in his same age preschool.
Yeah,
it will
absolutely.
be very influential, because sign language is something everybody's interested in and curious about.
Absolutely. We're going to take another quick pause here again. We want to welcome Lindsay and Mimi, who just joined us. Thank you again for being with us tonight. Again, we have Beth with us, who is the director and founder of the National Catholic Board of Full Inclusion. And we have a few more comments and questions for you, Beth. Kim writes in and says, I wish the inclusion college trend would push down to the elementary and secondary education schools, as we talked about. Thank you, Kim, for that comment. Absolutely. I think both of us agree with you on that. Susan?
Well, and I will just say that is what it does. So Las Vegas, University of Nevada, Las Vegas has an inclusive program. They were not inclusive as a school district, but because they're kind of isolated, they're all by themselves. Once they saw this college program, all the families were like, well, I guess our kids in high school have to be included because they want to go to this college program. And now it's trickling into the elementaries. So that is it is
great.
Worthwhile. If you are an alum of any university, you should cut a check, a $25 check. It can be nominal, and say to your university, I would like you to build an inclusive college program. Send it to the School of Education, a tape, a picture of Think College or Mason Life or Clemson Life, and let them know these programs exist, and ask as an alum to build it, because it, without a doubt, influences the school districts that are nearby, without a doubt.
Absolutely. That's a great idea too. So come on, people, go out and do that. That sounds awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Susan says, a 2012 study found Washington State to be the 46th out of 50 states for students with disabilities included in general education 80% of the day or more. We need this to work so badly, and also to expand to other disabilities besides Down syndrome.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Kim writes in, she says, let's listen to the kids. Beth, are you aware of a formal advocacy inclusion movement run by middle and high school students? I've seen lots of good and the R word in our schools, but how about a, quote, end the self-contained classroom campaign?
Oh, wow. Who said that? Who is that?
This was Kim who wrote and said that.
Kim, you are on to, it just gave me chills. You are on to something big. We could formalize it. I think it's powerful when it is organic, and it just kind of bubbles up, because it's very shocking. I will say it is shocking as administrators and principals and teachers to hear the students just bubble up and say that. But you're onto something big. And I think a lot of schools do have advocacy or social justice pieces within their club. And you could form a club, formal advocacy at the high school and junior high level. And I think it would be very worthwhile. So Kim, start a nonprofit. I'll support you and shout you out. Do it.
That is awesome. Thank you, Kim. Rob Targos writes in and says, Social emotional learning is another big key to inclusion. Really great info about the Buddhist.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And Susan writes in again, and she says, here in Washington State, the principal told me not to bring research anymore. Ooh. They absolutely, yeah, can you believe that? They absolutely would not include my daughter. It took a year and a state complaint to legislate compliance in my public school. That's why we are a Catholic school.
Is she at St. Madeleine Sophie? I wonder what, I don't know.
I don't know.
I am so proud of the Catholic schools in Washington State. Seattle as a diocese is really moving forward, and there are some beautiful inclusive Catholic schools there.
That's fantastic.
So,
I don't know much about what's going on the west side of our country, but you are the expert in that area for that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, these comments and questions have been so great tonight. So thank you for that. And, continue pouring them in, because this has added so much meat to our discussion tonight. So I appreciate all the comments and everyone who's participating in the discussion tonight. So you mentioned on your page, Beth, back to one of my questions here, that your biggest fear was not that your son Patrick, when he was born, had Down syndrome or a heart defect, but the feeling of exclusion. And I read that, Beth, and I thought that's exactly how I felt when my son was diagnosed with autism at 18 months old. And I think that's a really important really important comment, because I think there's so many of us out here that relate to that and understand that. And it hits us in a way that if you don't have a child with a disability or special needs, you can't really understand. You can empathize, but you can't really understand. So I think—
Molly, I just want to say, I don't know about you, but I will say for me, when Patrick was born, I thought I would never make another friend.
Yeah, I feel that way.
Did you feel that?
I did. I really did.
Make another friend.
And I thought my friends would leave me.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And
it is crazy.
To say, with Patrick, I have so more. I mean, my world has expanded so much because of him. It's incredible. So, but there is an instant feeling of separateness, and
absolutely,
that feeling of separateness is deeply painful, and that's what Pope Francis is talking about, being on the margins. And that's what we're all feeling right now as a country. We're all feeling separated, and it's very painful. And so I feel many families who do get a diagnosis after their child has been born, so months later or years later, you've experienced that probably even in a deeper way, because you feel like I had it, I was part of the group, and now I'm super separated. Whereas in my case, my child was just born and he was instantly separated,
Right.
But it's a fallacy. And that's important for us to know. That's our own bias, because we did not grow up in an inclusive world with inclusive school experiences and living in inclusive communities. So we feel that separateness deeply. But I wonder if these kids, as they get older and they start having children, if they would feel that as deeply. I don't know, it'll be curious. Right. But we know that there are communities and groups to be a part of, but it is a lonely, isolating journey unless you work to find people.
Absolutely, it is. And again, that's one of the reasons that I went into advocacy immediately, because I knew I felt the uphill battle after the diagnosis. And I thought, my goodness, what is my son going to feel in this uphill battle? And so, for me, and maybe that's why you also jumped into yours, is that's what we do as parents. You just have to jump in the pits with them and hold their hand and say, it's going to be okay, because we're going to walk through this together. And,
but what's interesting is because Patrick was in kinder, and I didn't do really any advocacy except for my own child, kindergarten through 8th grade.
Okay.
And then when he was graduating, it was like, I guess I should start. Well, it started to get really creepy because in the Sacramento diocese where I am, people started saying, will you talk to my school? Will you talk? And it was like, you shouldn't have to know Patrick to go to your Catholic school. That seems weird. So that was when it was like, okay, I'm going to write a website and get this going. So people can know you don't have to know Patrick to go to your Catholic school.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel so proud of people like you and other moms who, as their child is young, they really begin this work, because the payoff for you and your family will be, it's right now paying off. Look, so it's well, pretty incredible.
Thank you. Well, I feel the same way about you, Beth. I mean, the fact you're saying, even though you just advocated for your son, you were still making a monumental impact on other families, and that's why they came to you. Because they were feeling that. They were feeling that outreach. They were feeling that, like, that energy that you have. So that's fantastic. I'm sorry, going back, we have an Amy Bravo who just joined us. Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining us tonight. And we also have Renee says, MAPS is a self-advocacy program. Are you aware of MAPS?
Yes. MAPS
okay.
Is, it's a self-determination. Well, what I know of MAPS is it's a self-determination program where you, and I wish Renee was here with us so she could explain it better, but where you kind of explain your interests and what drive this person with a disability, what your interests are and where you want to see yourself, and then you develop a plan and how to get there. I think what Kim was asking for was typical students to create a formal advocacy for students with disabilities. And with actually a whole campaign of breaking down the segregated classroom, which I am for, Kim.
Yes, me too.
That's going to be working in my mind for a long time.
Me too. And when we went, like I said, we went to that IEP meeting, we had our advocate with us, and we made sure that we got Jacob into a preschool with his neurotypical peers. And we fought for that because they wanted to place him in a separate classroom. We said, nope, that's not the place for our son. And you have to get on their language. You have to speak their terms. Otherwise, they're not going to listen to you. So thankfully, our advocate helped us. And of course, with all the research that I've done and all the advocacy training. But, my heart goes out to the parent out there who hasn't gone through the advocacy training and who doesn't have those resources, because it is an uphill battle. And
you think of second language parents with second language barrier, right?
Yes.
Which our organization does have bilingual people who are willing to share their journey advocating within the second language. But we have families who just don't even have the bandwidth because they're trying to make ends meet.
Of course.
So it is, and that's why people who do have the ability, when you are advocating, you're not just advocating for yourself, like you said, you will be influencing that whole school, and it will help others' children.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for saying that. We also want to welcome Lynette, who just joined our show. Thank you, Lynette. And we have a few more questions and comments for you, Beth. Rob says, I felt separateness and competitiveness in Catholic schools in the 1980s. So he was feeling that there. And I think that that's something that we're still, that's still there in a lot of schools. I'm sure you can speak a lot more on that than. And Susan says, everyone at St. Madeleine Sophie.
Yep. There you go.
Okay. But they are overrun. 6 aides in one class. We were at St. Joseph's in Issaquah. Issaquah, thank you. It's a great little school, but it's not easy. There is no strong leadership or overall agreement in inclusive philosophy like at St. Mad's. I dream about the day when I don't have to have a constant fear being kicked out of general settings.
This is Susan. So Susan, I had that same fear all the way through, and I prayed a lot of rosaries. So I'm going to pray a rosary for Susan, you tell us the name of your child. But anyway, it's good to know about St. Joseph. I don't think I know about St. Joseph. And I will say to you, Susan, to reach out to me through our website. You can email me. And I want you to know about Fire in One Classroom and CCSE, which is in the Archdiocese of Baltimore and Washington, D.C., and these other advocacy groups, and maybe you can build one for the Diocese of Seattle. Because St. Madeline's would love to build one, I'm sure, and it sounds like St. Joseph's needs that. And if you start building that advocacy organization, you will start helping the Diocese of Seattle create a vision. That is what One Classroom has done in St. Louis. They've guided the vision. And so when you have a formal advocacy group, it really starts making a difference at the diocesan level.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Kathy says, my son is also Jacob and has autism. He will be starting kindergarten at a Catholic school in August. He went to preschool there before the formal diagnosis. We are so excited that he will be able to continue his education there and that they are working with us and inclusion.
Yay.
Awesome, Kathy.
Kathy.
Oh, I'd love to know where you're from, Kathy, because maybe if my
us.
Jacob and your Jacob could get together if you're anywhere near me.
Yeah.
We could have a little play date.
Yeah, congratulations.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's wonderful. And thanks for sharing that. Thanks to everyone who's sharing tonight. So I'm curious though, for the is the long-term vision for your National Catholic Board of Full Inclusion, Beth? How have you seen it expand and grow since you've started? And you've touched on some of that since.
My vision, so here's how it got started. I was at this amazing, if you don't know Sue Buckley, she's an educational researcher from the UK.
Okay.
She's amazing. She runs Down-Said International. So it's educational research for people with Down syndrome, but it's also just intellectual disability. Anyway, she's amazing. So I was at a conference where she was speaking, and there was this professor from Loyola Marymount, who was a friend of mine, who was there. And this was down in the LA area. And we're listening to Sue Buckley talk, and she was giving just terrible statistics for graduation rates for people with disabilities in the UK and the US. And they've stayed the same pretty much for 30 years. It's really terrible. So she basically called on all of us and just said, every one of you in this room, you have to push inclusion forward. The segregated settings, the outcomes are abysmal. So then I went over to my friend, this professor, Vicky, and I said, Vicky, for 15 years, I've wanted Notre Dame or Boston College or Georgetown, somebody to take ownership of this and to push this forward. Is there anybody doing that? And she said, no, there's really not. And so I said, then I'm just going to make the National Catholic Board on Full Inclusion, and you're going to be on my advisory board, okay? And she said, okay. She said, okay. So my secret dream is that Notre Dame or Boston College or Georgetown or Loyola Marymount, if you're listening, or Loyola of Chicago now. So Loyola of Chicago, I will say, Loyola Marymount in LA, and Notre Dame, and even Boston College, truly, are really moving forward with this. My secret dream is to have one of them say, we'd love to take over your nonprofit and have it be housed under our umbrella.
That would be fabulous.
And I'm for wishing out loud. I like to wish out loud. So I'm actually presenting at Notre Dame because they have their first cohort of, they call them PI, Program for Inclusive Education candidates at Notre Dame. So on Monday, I'll be speaking to them, the first cohort. And I'm just going to say it out loud. Christy Bonfiglio, hey, Notre Dame, you guys listening? Come suck me up into your thing. Because the truth is, being a little teeny tiny nonprofit that's Catholic, it just doesn't have the massive leverage of a Notre Dame. And so if a giant, huge university would take that on, it would be a game changer, because then even Notre Dame right now and Loyola of Chicago and Loyola Marymount, all three of those universities have inclusive educational training for Catholic teachers now. Whole cohorts are going through. So even that is a game changer, because you can't say we don't know how to do it anymore. Or we don't know what you're talking about, or Catholic teachers aren't doing this, it's only for public schools, or whatever the weird things are. So my secret dream is to have a giant, huge university suck up the National Catholic Board so that we could really start gaining momentum.
That's Awesome. Well, I will pray too that happens. And I wish you luck on Monday. That's exciting.
Yes, thank you. I know. I'm super excited to meet their cohort and to actually visit Notre Dame. I've never been there.
That's fantastic. Good for you. That's wonderful. We also want to welcome Shelley, who just joined us as well. So thank you, Shelley, for being part of this tonight. So what have been one of your most rewarding moments, Beth, in doing this work?
It's an everyday reward, honestly. There is so much grace just going down this path. That's how I know it's the right thing. It's every day. Like today, I just got an email. So 1 year ago, the National Down Syndrome Convention was in Sacramento, near where I live. We hosted an inclusion summit for families who wanted to know about Catholic education and inclusion. And it was very small. Only maybe 10 people came.
Okay.
And that is a convention that has, probably 4,000 people come. It's giant. But it didn't matter, because I believe that whoever comes, just like whoever's watching today, we're all meant to cross paths, right? This moment, right?
Right.
So we crossed paths with this woman whose name is Debbie, who was a first grade teacher. And she was going to be accepting a student with disabilities. And she was a very experienced teacher, but she was concerned. Mm-hmm. And she just wrote me an email today that I'm going to post on our Facebook page about the transformation that it had for her as a teacher, for her school. And now her school is moving to influence the diocese because it was so perfect. And it wasn't perfect because it wasn't messy and hard, because it was for sure messy and hard, but they all knew they were on the right track. Watching the student, watching the typical students respond, watching what happened in that group of learners. For this teacher, it was just so soul nourishing. And it was really beautiful to hear that update, because you meet with these people and then you're not sure, it's just like messages in a bottle or dandelion seeds. You never really know until they come back and let you know.
That's fantastic. Was that with the National Down Syndrome Society? The NDSS?
It was NDSC's convention.
NDSC's. Okay. All right. I went up actually in April, went to the National Buddy Walk they had up in DC. And I spoke on behalf of I was the one lone person who did advocacy, but I was up there, and for me, I am so inspired by the Down syndrome community. You guys are just on fire with your passion, on fire with your advocacy work. And so I wanted to really soak it up. And I wanted to meet Sarah too while I was up there.
Nice.
Yeah, she's great. I like Sarah a lot.
Nice.
So I got to know the heads of those organizations, and I got to mingle in and just soak up that inspiration from being around the Down syndrome community.
So many people doing such good work.
It's incredible.
And not just Down syndrome community. I mean, the autism community.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I have a friend who runs the Northwest Down Syndrome Association. Her name is Angela Jarvis Holland out of Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And she is all about cross disability connection
mm-hmm.
and actually working. So she does a conference called All Born In every year, and she wants everybody with any disability coming to this conference, learning together, connecting. And that's where
Beth, I have to connect with her.
You do.
I would love to connect with her.
Yeah, her All Born In is her conference. You want to go to it. It's always in April.
Yes,
and,
I do.
She's fantastic, and she is. That's where our true superpower lies, is in the cross disability connections.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to connect. I'll talk to you more about that later. So as I was saying though, I just am truly inspired. That's the bottom line of what I was trying to say there. I'm truly inspired by the Down syndrome community and what you guys continue to do and how you guys continue to push forward. And you see some of the most amazing stories, and you hear some of the most amazing, like you see success, like I'm sure you've heard John's crazy socks, and how he's grown that business to a couple $1 million. I mean, it's just incredible, the stuff that you see, and Colette's Cookies, and you have all these different people that are just doing incredible things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they never took no for an answer. And
That's right. That's right.
the bottom line.
And because they had a vision,
Had a vision, right.
if one thing we can say to parents, hold your vision for your child until they can tell you their vision.
Right.
But hold it. Really
there you
strong.
go. There you go.
Because,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then they'll tell you their vision, and because you've held it so high, they'll be able to follow their vision.
Absolutely. That's great. Lastly, what advice do you have for parents who are advocating and fighting for inclusion right now, Beth?
Well, self-care is real. So you have to give yourself real self-care, whatever that is. If it's 5 minutes of just taking a nap, if it's 5 minutes of walking your dog, 5 minutes of eating a chocolate bar, reading a book, listening, dancing to music, or just kissing your spouse, whatever. Really give yourself permission to care for yourself and nourish yourself, because no one wants to be doing this work in a resentful way. Mm-hmm. And when you're resentful or angry or all those things, the energy that's coming off of you, people will push back against it. So when you nourish yourself and feel filled up, people want to feel that energy and they want to be part of what you're doing. So I do believe in self-care. I believe in cherishing your other children, if you have other children, and making time for them, specific time for them. And I believe in, you should feel so much hope for our world, because the kids that are currently 25 and younger get it. And they will be our future. And they will be the people who have jobs who hire our kids, or the bankers who lend money to our kids, or the teachers, or the admissions people who allow our kids into these programs. Mm-hmm. And they will be really living inclusive lives. So hold your vision for your child. I want to say, there's a phrase from the 70s that I've been bringing back. It's called the soft bigotry of low expectations. That is what our students contend with and our children contend with every day. The soft bigotry of low expectations. So holding your child and holding your vision to high expectations is not unreasonable. That's not crazy. That is the way your children meet the expectations. Now, does that not mean they need support in that? All of our kids, that's why we're here today, our kids need support. But that doesn't mean they can't have an amazing independent or interdependent life. Mm-hmm. So we have to fight the soft bigotry of low expectations. We have to call it out when we see it. And we have to hold the vision for our kids until they can tell us what their dreams are.
Awesome. That is some good stuff. So I hope you got all that. Keep fighting for your kids because they're worth it. So Beth, we want to thank you so much for being on our show tonight.
Of course. My pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure's all ours. Thank you. And this concludes our Movement Monday. We are going to pick a number now. You're going to pick a number.
Okay.
Between 1 and 100. This is for the person who wins, the lucky winner of one of your t-shirts tonight. So go ahead, Beth.
I'm going to say 99 because that was the year my son was born.
Nice. That's awesome. So 99. All right. So we're going to do a little drum roll. And I'm waiting for... All right. Lori, you are our winner tonight. Please. Right. Congratulations, Lori.
Yay, Lori.
Yay. And I'll tell you, Lori is an incredible advocate. She has a daughter with Down syndrome, and she just does amazing things. So I'm so glad to have her as part of this show tonight. So congratulations, Lori. If you could just email me or message me your address, and I'll make sure that gets to Beth, or she can just message you directly.
She can message me directly.
Yeah, and you can, she'll send that on out.
On the she can do it on the National Catholic Facebook page if she wants, National Catholic Board Facebook page, or my own personal page, either one. Yeah.
So excellent. So any way you want to get that address to us, Lori, you go right ahead. So, all right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much again. And Thank you for all the work that you do, Beth, and for your passion and your vision, and just, you know, giving Patrick and so many other kids the right to education with their neurotypical kids, and breaking down those stigmas and fears within the Catholic education world. So it's incredible work you do.
Oh, thank you so much, Molly. It's been a real joy to meet you. And look, we're new friends now.
That's right.
All because of our kids. No
That's right. The
There's
kids
no
bring us
separateness.
together, right?
That's right. That's right.
They're amazing kids.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again. And we're just so thankful for your time. And I look forward to staying in touch with you, Beth.
Definitely. All right. Take care, Molly.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.